Here.
Quorum present. This evening, we have a presentation on behalf of the City of Troy Employees Casual for a Cause program for the months of January and February, and our Community Affairs Director, Cindy Stewart, is going to present a check to the group called Alternatives for Girls. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. For January and February, the city employees gave our Casual for a Cause money to Alternatives for Girls. We collected $1,018. Alternative for Girls is a 501c3 nonprofit located in Southwest Detroit serving homeless and high-risk girls and young women. And with me is Mari Vedic. She's the Resources Development Director.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Mari Vedic, and I am the Major Gifts Director at Alternatives for Girls. First of all, we'd like to thank the city employees for choosing us as a designated organization for the Casual for a Cause. We're very honored, and we promise to put the gift to good use. We are a nonprofit located in Southwest Detroit serving homeless girls and young women, offering street outreach services, also mentoring, tutoring, and we help upwards of 5,000 girls a year in various ways. So we'll take this gift and put it right back into the community to help girls and young women make safe choices and make good choices. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The first item of business is our public hearing, and we have one that is our zoning ordinance text amendment, ZOTA 242, agricultural uses in R1A through R1E, one family residential zoning districts. And Brett Sadat will present for us. Thank you, for the Planning Department.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. I spoke with a reporter today who asked me whether this item had anything at all to do with a proposed farm stand at Oakland Mall. And I clarified with the reporter that, in fact, does not, has nothing to do with any rumors or innuendos regarding that. So what this amendment is related to agricultural uses in single-family residential districts. Presently, agricultural uses are permitted in the R1A through the R1E single-family residential districts by right on parcels that are at least 5 acres in size and are not located within platted subdivisions. And there was a recent case of Papadelis versus the City of Troy, in which the Michigan Court of Appeals held that the city's residential zoning provisions related to accessory buildings did not apply to buildings used for agricultural purposes. So basically this case highlighted some areas of concern in our zoning ordinance related to accessory buildings, and for this reason, the City Attorney's Office forwarded this item to the Planning Commission for their review and their consideration. What the proposed amendment does is it actually defines what an agricultural building is. It also clarifies the types, the sizes of agricultural accessory buildings that can be constructed on residential property. The proposed amendment requires that agricultural accessory buildings are subject to site plan review. Also makes it clear that agricultural uses are permitted only when there are 5 contiguous acres of property on a single parcel. Many of you have heard about the concept of urban farming that's being contemplated for vacant parcels in the city of Detroit. And if this concept were, for whatever reason, in the future to be carried over to the city of Troy for consideration, these provisions would apply to a potential urban farm, provided it was in a single-family residential area. The Planning Commission considered this item at the March 9th regular meeting, which was a public hearing, and they recommended approval of the proposed amendment. I would note that you've looked at the minutes. There were 2 members who had cast dissenting votes on the item. These members were concerned that the proposed amendment was overly restrictive. I would note that the proposed language allows for agricultural buildings that are proportionate to the size of the property. So the larger the piece of property, the larger the agricultural building on the property. And I would also add to that concern that any individual who needs relief from a zoning ordinance provision can always seek relief from the Board of Zoning Appeals and seek a variance if they felt that that was warranted. And with that, Madam Mayor, I can answer any questions.
Okay. Counselor, other questions for staff before we open the public hearing? Seeing none, thank you. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone that's here on this item that wishes to speak on this particular public hearing? Seeing none, then I'll close the public hearing and return the item to the council table for a resolution. Councilwoman Kerwin?
Resolved that Troy City Council hereby amends Articles 4, 10, and 40 of the City of Troy zoning ordinance pertaining to the regulation of agricultural uses in the R1A through R1E, one-family residential zoning districts, to read as written in the proposed zoning ordinance text amendment, ZODA 242, City Council public hearing draft, as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Do we have a second?
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Kerwin, seconded by Councilman Slater, that we approve the resolution as printed and read. Discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Just for clarification, reading the Planning Commission minutes, I did notice you stated that two people, could we have?
Yes.
The two people, voted against this in the Planning Commission. Was it because they thought the building structures were too restrictive for the size? You stated that, but has that been amended since the Planning Commission, or is this exactly what the Planning Commission voted on?
This is exactly what the Planning Commission voted on. The concern was that if there were a person who were operating a farm, and there aren't many farms in the city of Troy, as you're aware, if there was a building that existed today and this amendment passed, it could be cumbersome on them to have the building rebuilt exactly the same size and dimensions as existed prior to the amendment. That seemed to be the concern of the Planning Commission members.
Go ahead.
With the Papadella situation, Telly's greenhouse, would this require them to do any reconstruction of their existing buildings? Are they excluded from this because of the lawsuit?
The existing buildings would be, the typical term that most people know is grandfathered.
Right.
They would not have to go back and rebuild any. Moving forward, they would be fine. But it would apply to new buildings starting from this date.
Further questions? Councilwoman Kerwin?
Mr. Sabadan, you brought up the example of urban farming, which has been in the paper recently for Detroit initiatives. We've talked about some flexibility in other zoning jurisdictions, like M1. If someone had an idea of urban farming, could they not bring that forward for the BZA to look at in terms of
In M1?
yeah.
At this point, no. The greenhouses are permitted in M1, but typical farming, as we know it, the sun beating down on the property, outside farms would not be permitted in M1 presently.
Well, then the question begs, are we looking at some sort of flexibility to allow for some of those opportunities should they present? Or does this simply rule that out?
It does not apply whatsoever to M1, and at this point we're not. At this point,
This
the
is
Planning
just-
Commission is not considering any.
It says R1A through R1E,
Correct.
residential.
That's it. Yes.
So, and at this time, if I understand you, planning isn't looking at some of those other opportunities.
Not at this time, no.
Although it's coming up in the general communities surrounding us.
That's what I understand.
Thank you.
And it's my understanding that where it is coming up in those areas, for example, in Royal Oak, it's in conjunction with the farmers market that they already have in place. And so they want to do the crops there, sell them there. In Detroit, it's in areas where they want to tear down houses and have vacant land, and they want to use that land. I don't know that either of those situations are applicable to what we do here in Troy. Of course, Troy began as a farming community, and there are many people within Troy that still want to do things on their own land. And up at the Nature Center, there's the ability for the group farming. So there are some other opportunities, but whether anyone would want to do it in M1, I don't know. We've not had anyone ask that. They've asked for other things in M1 with uses.
Madam Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Kerwin?
I just wondered if the Planning Commission itself had talked about it, since it does come up a lot at conferences and land use, innovative land use. And we want to keep those ideas open. I'm not trying to push anything on the Planning Commission, but should they attend some conferences and see that, it would be interesting to have that opportunity for them to discuss where they saw that. But flexibility, I think, is key, particularly in areas where we're not using a land. So this is specifically for residential.
Correct.
Again, R1A, R1E.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilwoman McGinnis?
My question is relative, and I understand that this language was incorporating in the GAMS will make this something that's reviewed every year, revised as necessary, and that will be in compliance with the GAMS, which is what it needs to be. But my question is specifically about the decision to add a provision that would make the minimum land requirement 5 acres contiguous, and if you could just give me a little bit of background about why we did that.
That's actually a very common requirement in zoning ordinance throughout Michigan. Having a minimum size for farms allows for a functional, a realistically functional farm. 5 acres is about as small as I've seen. A lot of communities require at least 10, and in some communities even more.
Okay, so that number was a standard. That's what I assumed. It was kind of a standard number.
That's a very standard provision. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Then the motion is before us. You ready to vote? Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor Schilling?
Yes?
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Motion passes. Our second public hearing is a reprogramming of the Community Development Block Grants, the CDBG program year 2007 funds, and Mr. Riznick is going to present for staff. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Community development block grant funds have decreased tremendously over the last several years. Consequently, the portion of it that we can do construction with for roads and sewers and so forth has dwindled to the point where we can't put enough money together over the 3-year period to fund those types of projects without putting large sums of money from the city coffers in there. So the last couple of years we've put up paths, parking lots, and playground equipment in Section 36 Park, and we're proposing to continue with those projects. Any questions?
And the people in that section are very happy with it.
It's well used at this point.
Yes, very well used. Thank you. No questions? Then I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone that's here on this item that wishes to speak? Seeing none, and I'll close the public hearing and return to the council table for a resolution. Councilwoman Kerwin?
Whereas the Troy City Council, after conclusion of a public hearing on this date, April 19th, 2010, has determined that program year 2007 unexpended funds of $92,641 should be reprogrammed from flood drain improvements to the Section 36 Park Improvement Project number 36-100-35. Therefore, be it resolved that Troy City Council hereby adds the Section 36 Park Improvement Project number 36-100-35 to the list of CDBG projects for program year 2007.
Do you have a second?
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Kerwin, seconded by Councilwoman McGinnis, that we approve the resolution as printed and read. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes. Motion passes. Our next item of business is public comment, and our public comment section is of a 5-minute time limit per person, and it may be on an item that is postponed, regular business, or the consent agenda, or any other item as permitted under the Open Meetings Act during public comment section. And I will call on those that signed up in the order that they have signed up here. So we'll begin with that. And the first one is Harry Philo. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Harry Philo. I'm just a couple weeks ago became a 24-year resident of Troy. My wife and I were married at the end of March, and what I wanted to talk about is the library again. And this was running through my brain all of today, and I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget what to say, but I had a wake-up call earlier this month regarding use of our local libraries. That I am a proud alumni at Wayne State University, and there were a few articles that I wanted to review while I was there for a librarian's professional meeting. And I hadn't been there in a little while, was surprised to see the parking is now $4.75 per time and increased on October 1st. I went to get a password to access their article databases, which are pretty good, and I was not able to use it because there was a substantial line, and even if I had the time to wait, the time limit was restricted to 1 hour. That's the reality at Wayne State, and I'm sure that there are like restrictions and cutbacks in other communities. And if some of you saw me this last winter, I was out canvassing in the winter, in the snow and ice to try to save some of Troy, and including saving the library. We were the people that I was working with were defeated in that cause, but that doesn't mean we've given up any thought of moving things forward. I will continue to, I have been and will continue to fight for the Troy Public Library. I think we should focus on what we have in our own community. And looking at the agenda for tomorrow night, I looked at the Attachment 5 regarding the recommended reduction in library hours as of July 1st. Given the economic reality in the city, it seems reasonable to me if we can just get away with cutting out 1 hour one day and closing on another day. And but I hope that this encourages other citizens to join me and people like me in helping to find alternative solutions. I think that we need to keep what we have here, and I really think that that's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next person to make a public comment is Kim Bryson.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor
Good evening.
and council members. As indicated, my name is Kim Bryson. I'm a 16-year resident here of Troy, and I have 2 young children that attend West Elementary School here, and I love being a resident of this community. What I'm here to do is to implore you to carefully choose what services you will eliminate to balance the budget. I'm a CPA, so I thoroughly understand the financial difficulties that you face, but I'm especially concerned with the library, the community center, the museum, and the nature center. I know that's a tall bill and a tall order to ask for. However, when you're looking at these services, such as the community center is the first one I'd like to touch upon. I and many others am an avid user of the facility. It's a place to gather safely, and a place for our 80,000 residents to enjoy the services that it offers. It has aspects of it that no other community has, and I would hate to see that go by the wayside. It's a place to exercise, and with an overwhelmingly overweight population, I think that's critical to allow us to continue to do that in such a fashion. If need be, raise the fees. I'm a member there. I'd happily pay more to use that facility. I think it's a steal to be able to be a member of the community center. The Nature Center, as I said, I have 2 young children who've been junior naturalist members for a number of years. In a society, again, now filled with electronic distractions for our young people, why would you want to eliminate a resource that lets our young people get outside and learn about their environment? It shocks me that the value of what they offer seems so unimportant to this community. It offers many programs for Scouts also. Both of my children are in Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, which encourages our young people to get involved in outside activities. Lastly, the other resource I will touch upon is the library. Not surprisingly, my first grader, my daughter, reads at a 3rd grade level. My 3rd grader reads at a 7th grade reading level. It is extremely important that we continue to impress upon the students in this community the importance of being able to read and be able to research when they need to do so. My son just did a program for his 3rd grade class, and it was imperative that we have the resources of the library. You can't find things on the internet necessarily. They're not always correct. They're not always accurate. They're not always appropriate for our young people to be looking at. We've already reduced our media specialists in the schools to half-time, and that shocked me that we had to do that. Our students are feeling the loss of this specialty daily. We've opened up our schools to schools of choice. Why have we had to do that? Because we have a declining enrollment. Why do we have declining enrollment? We have declining numbers of people moving into this community. And why is that? A number of reasons, I'm sure. Values in this community are such that over the years have not recently, but raised so it's difficult for young families to become a part of this community. I hate to see that continue. How are we going to attract younger families to move into a community like this if we take this library and say, it's not that important? Take this community center and say, it's not that important, and this nature center and say, we need to have these go by the wayside. How are we expected to even have people use the internet in this society nowadays? Not everybody with the economic times has the ability to have internet resources at home. That is so important for people to be able to go to the library, to be able to use those resources. Our library has been rated one of the best in the state. You can't get a parking space sometimes, or if you do, it's out in the back 40. It's a gathering place for young people to be able to gather safely and to be able to study. Our students continue to excel on standardized tests and on the ACT for college entrance exams. How do you think the elimination or reduction in services in this invaluable resource will affect this? If we don't have a library in our own community, I do understand that we would have to pay in other communities to use their resources if we're even allowed to do such. That shocks me, and I think that that is a preposterous idea for a city of 80,000 people to have its residents to go elsewhere. But not only is this an important resource for students, but adults also. I use our library regularly for advice, for historical information, for reading, for pleasure. I think it's just imperative that we continue to indicate to our residents that reading is an important thing. It cannot go by the wayside. We can't let electronics steal that ability to open up a book. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment section, it's Rhonda Henderson. Rhonda Henderson. Are you still president of the Troy Friends?
I'm Communications Director.
Communications Director.
I'd asked Cindy Stewart to pass out a packet too that I prepared for you, if you don't mind. Good evening, Mayor Schilling, Council. I'm Rhonda Hendrickson, and I represent the Friends of the Troy Public Library. I'm here tonight to ask the following of each of you. The Friends of the Troy Public Library and its membership respectfully ask the City Council to reject any budget that calls for permanent closure of the Troy Public Library in coming budget negotiations. We ask that you seek out alternative solutions to this economic problem before you take an irrevocable step toward closing our treasured city library. In the packet that you've been given, we've attached approximately 1,000 signatures of support gathered in just one weekend from people who request that you stop at nothing to keep our library open. That was just one weekend. I would like to share some of their comments with you. There was a resident who suffered a potentially fatal disease that caused her to have to learn to read again. She goes to the library every day and literally, through tear-filled eyes, referred to the library as her lifeline these past few years. There is a recently displaced executive that was seeking a place to get resume assistance and a sense of community during his personal loss. People ask if the library closes, what other libraries can they use? If Troy does not have a library to reciprocate with others, the residents of Troy will not be able to use libraries such as Birmingham, Bloomfield Township, Rochester, or Auburn Hills. In those that do accept non-residents, they will be charged at least $100 and fees for many services. Troy School District has cut librarians and school media centers are running on reduced days and hours, and students tell us that they are concerned about how they will have access to resources necessary for their homework. In almost every instance of communicating with people one-on-one, you will find that there is an overwhelming sense that this closure feels unwarranted and that the City of Troy needs to do more to find alternative solutions. People stated the council should act boldly and now to secure the library's future. The city asked the library to cut $1 million from its budget next year, but does not allow for that reduction to produce results when a July 2011 closure date is imminent. It is unthinkable that a community asset would be shuttered without ever having attempted reduced hours, staffing, and expenditures as a first effort at cost containment. We urge City Council to insist additional options be presented. Council would never allow a single bidder in a city project, and this single option plan would never be allowed in other city business. Complete closure of the library would make reopening cost prohibitive. It would be fiscally responsible to reduce services temporarily, run at a limited speed until such time it is feasible to return to current levels. In addition, an empty building and depreciating assets on the city campus could render the library worthless and make it financially impossible to reopen in the future. There is a drive and willingness on the part of the community to look at other ways to manage this problem. Involved citizens and organizations such as the Friends implore you to partner with us to seek out alternative solutions for securing financial health of the library. The City of Troy has maintained a library and a police force since 1963, and there is no reason why it has to be a one or other proposition today. During those 47 years, there have been an up and down economic cycles that never required the closure of the library. The Friends of the Troy Public Library ask you to join us in our 51-year mission of promoting and supporting the Troy Public Library. Please reject closure and work to find ways to secure the future of the Troy Public Library now. Thank you.
Our next speaker is James Savage, under public comment.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. At the last meeting, the management proposed a resolution to approve a contract to retain Carlisle Wortman Associates. When questioned regarding the amounts to be paid, management was very vague and non-committal. Why was management proposing something for council to approve when they did not have the details? Did they not know the details? Did they know the details but did not want them made public? Or did they expect council to merely rubber stamp the proposal? I would like to know the answer to Mr. Howleck's question: how much did we, the taxpayers of Troy, pay Carlisle Wortman in 2009, the year we went broke? Also at the last meeting, a Mr. Waldron, I think his name was, a Rochester Road businessman, commented on a survival plan for the businesses in his area. I applaud him for taking the initiative in this matter, and I wish him luck. But he will need more than luck. As some of you know, I have been battling City Hall for over 10 years over the traffic and development on Rochester Road. It started with my suggestion of a pedestrian overpass at Torpey to connect people from that area to Waddles Elementary and Baker Middle Schools. In 5 minutes, I cannot begin to tell you the time and effort spent I spent to try to improve the situation there, only to get shut down by either council or management. An example. Some years ago, every resident on Harris Ave signed a petition to close one of two Troy Point Plaza driveways because it was only 15 feet from Harris, and being on a curve, it presented a traffic danger. The answer to the residents was, no way, Troy Point Plaza must have two driveways. A few years later, while considering driveway options for a new fast food restaurant, a member of planning department said, well, we could close one of the Troy Point driveways. Years ago, we gave a big tax break to the biggest auto parts supplier in the world. Now it is time to help our small local businesses. They are suffering, not from bad management, but from traffic problems caused by the city. This could be the spark that ignites the turnaround for Troy. Council needs to take the ball and run with it. This will build something up from the ground up, from the people who are involved. That area of Rochester Road used to be our downtown shopping centre, with dozens of thriving retail outlets. Shoppers came from miles around to Torpes Meat Market and Fountains Produce Market. And I believe it can come back. And talking about the old times, maybe some of you who have been around for a long time would remember May's Barn. It was the hotspot for Troy, and it was on the corner of Rochester Road and Harris. That was our downtown, and it could still be our downtown, but the traffic is the problem. I have talked to the businesses there, and they say the traffic is the problem. People cannot slow down enough to make the turns. I looked at the plans for that part of Rochester Road, and the traffic lights are not conducive to the businesses. They are merely there to get the Rochester and Rochester Hills traffic as fast through Troy as they possibly can to the I-75 interchange. So I think there's a lot can be done. I hope the Troy Council will go with this, and I think it can work and it should work. Oh, and incidentally, this Friday is the Troy High School Senior Citizens Prom, and it's from 6 till 9 in the gym at the Troy High School, and we hope to see lots of people there. Thank you.
Next on public comment, we have Tim Cromer, is it? Yes.
Is it K-O-E-R?
Yes.
Good evening,
Good
Mayor
evening.
and Council. I want to return to the library issue, if I could, for a minute.
Yes, certainly. And the mic is on this side,
Sorry.
yes.
I've been reading a library book this week. The title is This Book is Overdue. It's by Marilyn Johnson. And Ms. Johnson starts each chapter off with a quote. And I'm not going to go through the book here, but chapter 1, which is entitled The Frontier, thought you might be interested to hear her quote. It says, "In tough times, a librarian is a terrible thing to waste." Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next we have John Bird. John Bird. We're going to ask folks, please do not clap. We know that you appreciate each other's comments, but it lengthens the time between people. Hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Nice to see all you people. And my name is John Vert, and I'm only here because I'm waiting for someone to come forth with a priority list of needs and wants before you get into the budget discussions. And I think that something like that should be published so that people know where you're headed and what you're doing in these directions. One of the things that I know the library needs to be saved. I know that we need to lay off as few police officers as we can, and the Department of Public Works. Now, do we have a prioritized list? Have you put together one? Is it going to be published to the public before we get into the budget discussions? Yes, or so we can see it. She's looking at the city manager.
Now, I should indicate that I'm shaking my head yes, because for several years we have had a list, and in fact there's something in included in the budget document, I believe. Mr. Zerlike, would you like to respond?
For the past several budget documents, there's been a list of priorities that the City Council advanced in that document, and also back in August or September when we realized the financial straits that we were in. City management, with the help of the private sector and Oakland County, had made a forecast of declining revenues and put those against our expenditures, and City Council had several options to select. One of them was called Option 1, which essentially indicated that public safety would be saved at the expense, unfortunately, of the quality of life departments. There was not enough money to maintain the city as it was currently maintained. Our High Point had about 500 employees about 6 years ago. After this round of layoffs that are going to be through essentially all departments and total 55 less positions this coming July 1st than last year, we'll be down over 108 positions compared to our High Point, and that's already about a 20% reduction across the board for all of our employees. Unfortunately, as we continue to an economic downward spiral with a capped millage rate, we have to lay off more employees every year, and the option that was selected by the Troy City Council, again, was called Option 1, which unfortunately sacrifices the quality of life departments to delay layoffs in the public service areas, which is police, fire, and public works. There was another option that would have the library and museum and community center stay.
Why is the, excuse me, I do want to interrupt you.
That's
Why is
fine,
the
then
community
don't.
center even in the equation?
want
Any
to
first-year
interrupt,
business
then
major
don't.
can save the community center.
Sir, would you wait just a minute? Usually we don't have comments during public comment section, but you asked a direct question on that and we had a direct answer. But Mr. Zerlike, instead of going through all of that, I think maybe we should stop and tomorrow night we're going to be talking in our study session again. But for quite a few years, we have had a list of priorities, and they have been based on what the community has told us through surveys, through meetings, through all of that. And so we have had a list, and yes, it's been published.
It has been
so
published.
we stopped the clock on when I asked Mr. Zerlike to respond. But if you want to continue, go ahead.
Well, the one part is I'm not just trying to save the community center, but I don't understand why it's even on the agenda. If the numbers I've read are correct, the community center can be self-sufficient without very, very little effort, and shutting it down would be nothing but malicious, or either that or total incompetence on the part of this group right here. And I don't think you're totally incompetent, okay? So I don't know why that's there. What I don't want to see, what I'd like to see is a plan that we can save people down the road. I look at Mr. Fleming a lot because he's one of the people who said vote no, and I don't want to see the police department laid off 3 years from now. That's not a plan. That's praying for, help. That's not a good plan. We have to have a plan that says what can we do to save as many people as we can. What can we do today that will save people 3 years from now? And do we have that? And I'm not hearing that. I'm not hearing that from anybody. I'm saying, okay, we only have this many bucks, but we're going to do it here. But what can we do today that will save that? What are we doing right now that makes that community center self-sufficient? Because it's a simple, if the numbers I read are right, there's nothing to that. It shouldn't even be in the agenda. You shouldn't be bothering yourself with that. Just things like that. I want the library saved. I want the police department saved. I want everything we can save. I realize you can't do that, and so does most of these people out here. But at the same time, let's set our real priorities up and not waste our time with things that can take care of themselves.
After public comment, sometimes we call on the manager to respond to certain things from the questions that are asked. So if you'd like, we can talk about that then.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else under public comment that did not sign up? I saw some people come in after. Mary Ann Bernardi?
Thank you, Mayor. I did sign up, but that machine always eludes me. I was at home watching the city council meeting, and I'm sick today, and I should be at home. But when I saw that, again, we're not showing now we are, yes. And I had my coat on and off and on and off because when the meeting starts, all of the speakers started out, you didn't show their face. And then after they've spoken for about 5, maybe less than that, maybe 2 minutes or something, then you show their face, and then you keep that frontal view there for maybe 3 or 4 more minutes, and then it goes back to the back view. And that's why I had my coat on and off, on and off. I thought, oh, well, it's solved. But then it isn't solved. It went back to the back view. And when I saw that happen to 2 speakers, I came over here and walked in when the second speaker was still speaking, and it was still in the back view. And both of the speakers who spoke just now, it was a little bit of their face and then the back view for the rest of their speech. And I've sent you many emails about this. I think it's number one, disrespectful of the public. I think it's discriminatory of the public, because that doesn't happen to employees or developers or business people or anyone else who comes up here. It only happens during public comment, and it only happened, it began to happen 3 meetings ago. And after each meeting, I sent you an email. And I think that it shows grave disrespect and discrimination. When I'm at home watching, to me it's an important civic function that I watch, and I think everyone should watch the City Council meeting. And I watch every part astutely, every single part. When you're speaking, I'm glued. When the public is speaking, I'm glued. And I'm finding it very hard at home when the public speaks to even hear or understand what they're saying. To me, facial expressions are very important. And being a nurse, I have to keep my CEUs up. And the last 2 years, I've focused on brain development. And they've come out with real facts now. There's been substantial work on brain function. They now know that it is a very substantial fact. It's been substantiated that females, as part of their communication, facial expressions are extremely important. It's just something about the female brain. Well, after I learned that in a symposium that I went to for my CEOs, I started to watch myself kind of like step back and watch and see, is that really true? Well, voila. I noticed that in myself, when I'm speaking with someone or listening to someone, facial expressions are very important to my understanding of what they're saying and where they're coming from and my connection to them. It's very important. Now, so it's discriminatory on so many levels. With that new research, it's even discriminatory gender-wise, but it's discriminatory in terms of other people who come up here. To me, the public is integral to this meeting, and you've always made it so. I don't understand why you're allowing the city administration to do this. And I'm saying that cautiously, but I know you, I know all of you, and that's my belief, whether you believe it or not, that this is coming. I don't think any of you would have directed or had any part in something like this happening. That's my belief about all of you. So I think it is coming from city administration, and I think the only way it can be stopped is if you remain true to your values and your beliefs and your commitment and motivation, which I've seen over the years, and maintain the public's dignity and their access and their right to address you, and the right of those at home who want to know what people are saying and are able to listen and understand, including their facial expressions. To me, that's very important. And I'm not unique. I'm just one female out of a sea of females. And facial expressions are very important to me. I have to have that to be able to understand them. So I beg you to please allow me, when I'm sick and I can't get here, I still want, like I should be right now, probably compromising my own health to be here. I'm going back home. But I hope that you will allow me to have the full view of everyone who comes up here so that I can understand them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak under public comment? Mrs. Bernardi, I hope you feel better. Then we'll return here to the council table, and is there, council members, do you have any things, clarification that you wish from staff at this point on any items that came up? Councilman Kerwin, you had one?
Well,
or more than one?
Well, a couple of points, I think, Madam Mayor, if I may. One is, and I have received some email and some phone calls from the folks in red who are with us today in support of the library. And we had a gentleman who came up and talked about have we set the priorities. And I think it's important to remind people to go back to the home page on our Troy City website. For people who are looking for information regarding the priorities or option 1, it's still posted on there. It's on the home page, scrolling all the way down to the restructuring proposal, which is called the from the management manager, the 6-year restructuring plan. And going through that, this then becomes apparent. It does set a record of where we have been, where we are, and going forward. And all of that's put into context, and I believe the pages are nearly 50, I think 49 pages worth of slides and other information. But for people who are interested in what happened or how we ended up going in this direction, it is all there, so I would suggest that. In regards to the cameras, if I may, it has been helpful for council members to see how we in fact look when public comes before us, because comments had come before where are we attending to the public, are we looking at the public, and seeing that the focus has been in part on us as it moves around the room. It calls us to mind to sit up, pay attention, look folks in the face. And as we go through an hour of public comment, it is a good reminder. So although a member of the community may think that's the direction of management, it has never been the direction of management at all, but it has been a helpful guide for those of us sitting here and for others in the room to see that there are other things shown.
I think that the variety of camera angles and showing the audience in totality and us in totality or alone, and the speakers in different at front and the side has been helpful because it's a little variety for one thing for the watching public. The second thing is, I know the people that are here, especially those in red, and many are here on this item and not wearing red, but they're supporting the library. I do want you to know that it is because of our $22 million deficit for the next 5 years that we're having to make these very difficult decisions and very difficult choices. This is not something that council takes lightly. This community has expressed to us many times over and over again that our first priority of local government is to provide for public safety, health, and welfare. And so those must be our first priorities. The quality of life services have been wonderful in this community, and we know that the library has been outstanding. This is not taken lightly. We are gathering all the information that you folks have given us, but we must have a balanced budget. We must look at long-term sustainable funds, not short-term solutions. And there are some things happening with the library which show closure of certain days, plus library personnel being let off gradually. We are looking at all those options. We are looking at all the options with regard to the community center and all of the other departments in the city, including privatization, regionalization, and consolidation. So this has been a multi-pronged approach to a very difficult situation. But we must remember that it is not just for this year. When we look at the budget tomorrow, we're looking at a 1-year budget, but also a 3-year budget with projections out 5 years. And those are very, very difficult times for all of us. Mr. Zerlike, did you have more you wanted to add on that?
Just that we looked at all the quality of life departments. Some required less of a subsidy than others. I didn't want to judge and say the community center at a $400,000 or $500,000 subsidy is more important than a library with a $4 million subsidy. And we're always looking at ways to try to reduce those costs. But I cannot balance a budget on an if-come solution. I have to balance a budget based on known costs and known revenues.
Are there any other council questions or comments here on this? Okay, then we will turn next to our regular business items. The first one is a bid waiver for Neptune water meters and parts. And we have a resolution on the table for that. I don't think we need to read the resolution, but does someone want to move the resolution?
Mayor,
Councilman Slater?
I'll move the resolution as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Slater, seconded by Councilman Fleming, that we, Mayor Pro Tem Fleming, excuse me, that we approve the resolution as printed. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Motion passes. H4 has been withdrawn by staff, so we will not be doing item H4. And now we go to the consent agenda and ask, are there any items that council wants exempted at this time? I noticed that the minutes should be as corrected and amended. They're on the table there. Are there any other items?
I4D.
I4D. Any others? Okay, if we could have a resolution approving all the items in the minutes as corrected, except for I4D.
Mayor.
Madam Mayor?
Yes. Oh, Mayor Pro Tem
I think item I4H as well, I believe.
I4H?
It's the one that's being,
Is that what Mrs.
being eliminated.
Bartholomew?
That was the travel authorization. I think that's been asked to be removed as well.
That's to be removed, I4H removed, okay, thank you for catching that. Councilman McGinnis, did I see you signaling?
I was going to move the resolution.
Okay, Councilman McGinnis, move.
Resolved that all items as presented on the consent agenda are hereby approved as presented with the exception of items I4H and I4D, which shall be considered after consent agenda items as printed.
I4H is removed from the agenda, so we don't need to exempt it here. We're just going to remove it, right? So it's just I4D. Okay.
And the minutes.
And the minutes. And the minutes as corrected, yes. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman McGinnis, seconded by Councilman Slater, that we approve all of the the consent agenda items except for I4D, and that I4H is removed, and that the council minutes as corrected. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Motion passes. Councilwoman Kerwin, you wanted I4D?
I4D is the standard purchasing resolution 3, exercise renewal option, concrete pavement repair. I'll move the resolution and would ask for support so that we can speak to it.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Kerwin, seconded by Councilman Slater, that we approve the resolution so that we may have comment with regard. Yes.
This has to do with concrete pavement repair. I don't
Yes.
have a specific problem with this, but it does give us an opportunity to talk about concrete pavement repair,
Right.
and particularly in anticipation of tomorrow's meeting. However, if there is one thing that I hear from residents in the community, it is on this issue of concrete pavement repair. How it's done, why we need to be repaired so frequently, and isn't there some obligation to the companies who make this repair? So here again, we're calling in a group to a low bid specs for concrete pavement repair, but I'm hoping that we can hear from the city manager or a designee in response to our roads disrepair in general. I bring this up because this past week in Lansing, when some of us went up to the Capitol Conference and had an opportunity to speak with our representative rather than our just having the opportunity to ask our state representative to support us in revenue sharing. He, in turn, shared some constituency concerns regarding pavement repair currently undergoing in the city of Troy. So I'd like to look at this particular resolution, which is a specific company, and ask the question, what kind of hold do we have on companies who come in and repair our roads when it would appear to many of our residents that they simply fall apart?
Okay. And this one also, too, is part of the tri-party county road agreement. And as I came down here, I noticed that Livernois and Long Lake again is being worked on, and that's the county road.
So there's a lot
yes.
in there.
So people are noticing not only that one, but others, too. So, Mr. Zerlag?
I'll give a general overview on major roads that are county roads. There's major roads in Troy, and there's local roads. And definition by exclusion, a local road is the street where you live. A major road is essentially everything else. It's where your local roads connect to. And the city of Troy has major roads that are owned and maintained by the city, and major roads that are owned and maintained by the county. And the roads that are owned and maintained by the county are South Boulevard, Long Lake, Big Beaver, Maple, 14 Mile, Adams, Crooks, Livernois, John R., and DeQuinder. The rest are ours. Unfortunately, the Oakland County Road Commission, like many other governments, is in deep financial straits, and in areas where they should be doing slab replacements, they no longer have the funding for that, not just in Troy, but in the entire county, and they're doing asphalt repair. Nowhere is that more evident than on John R. Road.
Right.
In the past, the city of Troy spent more money on county roads in Troy than Oakland County spent on county roads in Troy. We can no longer afford to do that. That's where we are generally. In terms of the specificity of guarantees from any concrete pavement repair, I'll refer either to Mr. Miller, Steve Van Det, or Tim Richneck.
Thank you.
I'll refer to you now.
Well,
Mr.
initially, I will comment in general. I know that there was a recent major road question that came up related to Crooks Road, and the guarantee was good for 2 years, and then the deterioration of the concrete occurred after that 2-year period, so it was past that. And well, I'll have to look a little more closely what we can do about having longer guarantees with the city engineer. We'll have to look into that. I can't answer that right now. And more specifically about this contract, Tim Richneck is here regarding this resolution, but you could comment upon those warranties and guarantees.
On this specific
specific case.
Mr. Richneck?
Yes. Let me go back. I've been here 18 years. Over the last 10 years, we've had numerous contracts with these contractors and others. I'll go back and cite a couple of issues that we did have so that you can have an understanding of, where we were, what we did, and the result of that. We had a contractor who had some concrete that was provided to him by a concrete plant that failed to withstand the warranties that were required under the contract. That vendor, we sat down with him in the engineering department. We worked with the American Concrete Association to identify what those failures were and what caused those failures, and recommendations for replacement or compensation for what had failed in the concrete. The concrete companies that do the installation and the finishing, they stood completely behind their work and the product that was sold to them by the contractor. They came back in the first year. We identified all the concrete that had failed. They replaced that concrete. We had an extended warranty that they were willing to look at and sign, and over the last 2 years, we have not had additional failures on those concrete. So we're still within a warranty period on it. So as product, and it on a 25-foot or 25-mile stretch of M46, because there was a lot of truck traffic up there. That project worked out fabulous. They figured they got twice the life out of that roadway that they would if they just put concrete in. As Steve mentioned, that particular small portion, and it's only a single lane that goes across there. We don't know why that particular lane failed, but in the future, as it breaks apart and we get potholes, we'll be looking into that and bringing in the authorities on it. But overall, over the years, concrete and the concrete contractors have been a good value to the city. Now, I would point out that, I get calls regularly on, the concrete road failed out in front of my house, or you just replaced it. There are times that people will say, you just replaced it, and I go back and look at our documented records when the concrete was actually put in, and they're 15 and 20 years old. Other times they're 7 or 10 years old, depending on what type of roadway it is. Now, we do a lot of concrete slab replacement on Rochester Road and Coolidge, which are both city of Troy roads, but we don't replace the whole roadway. We're only taking the worst slabs of the worst. So when we have other slabs that go bad, some of those slabs are 20, 25, and 30 years old. So I think there's a perception that a lot of that concrete prematurely fails. But with the exception of the ASR problem that we had about 7 years ago, where we ran out of good, clean aggregates, and they had to do some changes in the formula, things have really performed very well in the city of Troy.
Tim, can you define the ASR problem, please?
It's a situation where the acidic reaction to the sands or the silicas and create like a gel in the concrete after a period of time, and that gel would just break out apart the surface of the concrete. And they put some byproducts from the steel industry, the ash, into those concrete mixes to resolve that issue.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Kerwin?
I appreciate all of the staff's work on that, and particularly the response from Mr. Van Dam, which was sent and very well done. I think I want to make sure that we understand that we're looking at this from an oversight and accountability. Oh, he sent one. I received an email. It was very informative. We had other people speak tonight.
All right.
But the email was really well done. I want to give credit to him. From an accountability and an oversight, before we invest more dollars, and specifically here, we have to have an assurance that when those tax dollars, which are scarce now, are paid out on roads, that we then can say, aha, we've put that down and we expect in response that this will last X long, or the company will come and make it right. And whether we're looking at this particular one or tomorrow when we're talking about setting aside monies for the infrastructure of the city, whereas we have people in red sitting here saying, we would like those monies there, we have to know from an accountability standpoint that this will hold. And that's the assurance that I think that I'm asking for tonight.
Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
I agree with Councilwoman Kerwin here. Specifically, with these contractors, what is the warranty? What are they warranting? We've heard 2 years, we've heard what? Specifically, can you advise us exactly what warranty we're getting with this concrete? I think that's what you're alluding to, Councilwoman Kerwin. We need to know exactly what that is.
I know that Susan is here. Let me see if she's got the detailed information. I don't have that in the paperwork.
Okay.
Because it says additionally, you have the same prices, same terms, and same conditions. You want to know the conditions.
I want to know
right.
the conditions. How many years are they warranting this concrete, and what does that agreement look like? I'm sure it's better. We've thought it out, but I just want, this council needs to know.
And Madam Mayor,
just went down to her office to gather that.
and I recognize that it's a tri-party county road agreement, and I understand it's their terms and conditions. However, I think that our constituents, our citizens, when they're riding on the roads, a road's a road is a road. So as much as we say, oh, well, it's this one, the level of frustration both for us and for the state representative who fielded these questions, and for our residents who are saying, I don't care which road it is, I expect the surface to be in good repair.
Well, and we're right at that time of the season where they're fixing everything. It's like, you know,
it's frustrating to drive anywhere.
Coolidge again, and there's something at Crooks, and there's something at Livernois, and there's something over at Jednar. Let me see, is there any one that we don't have some small project going on? I'm trying to find one. Seems like all I did is find road projects going on between county and state. It is that time of the year.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Yeah, I think we appreciate all the problems we've had in the past. I know we've all heard of this ASR problem.
Right.
But I'm looking at going forward. It's hard to go back and, you know, apply warranties to people, but going forward, that's what I'm looking for, specifically with these contracts, any contracts we have with concrete replacement or road repairs going forward. That's what I'm looking for, is exactly what the warranty looks like.
Want to take a break and get the answer after? All right, okay, we'll take up, what, 5 minutes?
5 minutes?
5 minutes?
Wait, do we need a table?
We need to table the item?
That's because you have an open motion. You should table it until after the recess.
All right.
I move to table.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Kerwin, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Fleming, that we table the item until after the break. Thank you.
Students
We need
who
to
are-
vote. We need to vote.
Oh,
Yes.
you vote on
Oh, sorry, I'm just in such a hurry here. The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis? Yes.
Motion passes, sorry. Students that need something signed for class can come up. Adults that want a signature for their spouse can come. Was it Mrs. Learstein that had the answer? Aha, there she is. Okay.
No.
And it was what the conditions were for this contract, that we're going to ensure that we're going to have good concrete.
Warranty.
What the warranty?
The warranty under this contract for all four of the contractors is for 1 year. It's a maintenance bond that is full, as well as their guarantee for 1 year. So it is a slab replacement contract, and that's typically all we ask for.
Yes, Mr. Zerling?
Our next meeting, I think, is next Monday. I'm going to recommend...
tomorrow. Tomorrow and then Monday.
Next meeting is May 10th. Unless it's critical to the operations of the city, and I want to apologize to my staff, I normally talk with them first. But I think you got to table this, and we'll try to get 2 years off the low bidder.
All right.
So we'll move to postpone until the next regularly scheduled
Till May 10th?
meeting.
Yes.
Is that when the next regular meeting is? Okay.
And then if they say no, we'll go to we'll asphalt patch the streets like Oakland County does.
Okay. So Councilwoman Kerwin moved and Mayor Pro Tem Fleming seconded tabling this item to May 10th, the next regularly scheduled council meeting. Discussion?
Mayor?
Yes.
Could I just
Councilman Slater?
Could I just ask a question?
Yes.
Don't we normally test concrete when it's poured for its consistency to the specs? So isn't there a built-in something built into the product so that when they initially pour it that we're pretty sure that it's good?
What testing is done, we don't test every load, but we do periodic testing to take samples. And what that testing does is it's a test where you crush it after so many days to test the strength. The issues that we had with the ASR was not a strength issue, it was the chemical reaction that happened a period of time after it was poured. So yes, there are certain tests you can do, but some things just are not testable.
We're better off having a longer guarantee.
Well, and if you talk about guarantees, you probably have seen contracts with the MDOT, the state of Michigan, and maybe some other larger projects where they put longer guarantees in where you have a road construction. Because at that time, the contractor has the opportunity to look at the design. There's a lot of drainage now being put in. You look at it, if anybody's driven up on M59 now, you see how they're taking all that base out, they're putting drainage in, they're putting a very deep base material in there to stabilize. That supports that concrete and allows that concrete to have a longer life. Under these contracts, what we're really doing is taking a mini 8 by 12 slabs or 2 or 3 together. You don't have the opportunity to go in because a lot of the material here was laid on clay with a very minimal amount of base put underneath for drainage. And so these contracts, all we're doing is replacing and trying to extend that roadway life, not doing what you would look at as a long-term fix by putting drainage so that, because you'd have to take the whole roadway out to do that. So under this situation, if we were to ask for the long warranties that you would have on a brand new construction project, the prices would have to reflect that because those folks don't have control over drainage and base material that's currently underneath it.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. The vote then on the tabling to May 10th?
Postpone.
Postpone?
Mayor Schilling?
Yes?
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Motion passes. That concludes those items. Our next is council comments. Yes.
Before we go to that,
Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
thank you. I'd like to move a resolution to excuse, we didn't do that at the beginning, to excuse the absence of Councilmember Howard for being out of the county and Council Member Beltramini not being here due to a family illness. So I'd like to excuse him from this meeting Monday, April the 19th, and also the closed session if we have that.
Do we have to suspend the rules?
Okay.
Rule number 6. We need to suspend rule number 6, order
Okay.
of business first.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move to expend rule number 6, order of business.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Fleming, seconded by Councilman Slater, that we suspend rule number 6. Discussion? Vote, Mr. Bartholomew, on the suspension?
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes. And
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Okay, now I'll move the resolution to excuse Councilmember Howard for being out of the county and Councilmember Beltramini due to a family illness from this regular city council meeting of Monday, April the 19th, and the closed session meeting we have Monday, April the 19th.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Fleming, seconded by Councilman Slater, that we excuse Councilman Howard for being out of the county and Councilwoman Beltramini for family medical situation. Discussion? Yes, Councilwoman Kerwin?
I guess I thought there was a time when we were just going to record it as, you know, absent and their reasons, rather than going through this. I get confused on how we did that for a while and we didn't do for a while. At this point, I'm kind of, just write them down as being out of the county if they're out of the county. I know that we can talk again about it when we keep talking about a meeting that's not scheduled, but boy, we need to schedule that one and look at our rules, as we've talked about, and our code of ethics, and our goals and those things. But at this point, I'm just saying, just record it as
Mrs. Braddock,
absent.
do we have to change our rules and procedure then? Did we change our rules and procedure to excuse and then not excuse, or we've been?
Actually, I don't know that there was a change to the rules, but the tie goes to the charter, and the attendance tied to the 25% for the 5 consecutive meetings that are unexcused. So it ties to the charter, not to the council.
Okay, so it's the tie to the charter that makes it that we need to excuse. Is that right?
If council chooses to do so.
Okay, the council chooses to do so. Okay. Okay. My other question, while we're on this item, is that Councilman Howard indicated that he'd be gone, I don't know, the 12th or 13th or something, and we get the email on the 19th he was gone. He's in Australia, of course, for the wedding. Did he indicate when he's coming back?
I have not been made aware of that.
Okay. No? Okay. All right. Okay. Because we do have our budget things in there and some other meetings and stuff, but, things happen, just like with Robin's husband. It's not that we plan those things. Okay.
I guess
yes, Councilwoman Kerwin?
Again, it's just those who are here are able to do this, and it doesn't matter to me whatever the reason is. I mean, I feel for whatever reason, I understand people have priorities and they need to be where they need to be. This is where we work, and the record for many of the groups then shows if they're here or if they're not here. And that's all I think it should in fact replace. So I've always had a problem with this. I brought it up before. There was a time when we then got away from it. Somehow now we're back into it. But I just as soon record that they are out of the county without passing these resolutions.
Further discussion on this item to excuse?
As I understand.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
As I understand it, though, by charter, we need to excuse. If we don't excuse, they're considered unexcused. So that's what I'm doing. We're giving excused absence. We know they're not here. There's a reason for it. If you don't do that, it's considered unexcused, and there may be consequences for that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Ready for the vote? Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Kerwin?
No.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
No.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Motion passes. My reason for voting no is similar to Councilwoman Kerwin's, that I don't think it's necessary to always be excusing. I think that recording people as present or absent, as they do in many situations, is sufficient. Okay. Now can we go to council comments? All right. Council comments. I note that there was a thank you letter from Catherine Broad regarding the response to the fire at American House, and I'm sure that everyone's very appreciative. We also had someone who's having a 90th birthday who happened to be there at, that's where she lives, and when her daughter wrote and asked for some congratulations for her mother for her birthday, she commented about how wonderful everyone treated her at the time of their, when they had to be evacuated, and how pleased she was with the service. So I bring that up again. We're all very appreciative of police, fire, and the Parks and Rec Department at the community center, where the residents from American House were evacuated to until they could find either families or another place for them to go. And then there's also another item in here I wanted to mention under comments, and that is about the post office. I did read the letter, which was sent to me and then went to all of us, and I've had my mail carrier asking me repeatedly, is the city going to be buying that property? I said, the city was never going to be buying that property. I said, and she said, well, we've been told that it was sold, then it was not sold, back and forth and back and forth. And so if they sell it or lease it, then they still want to have some services there. If they don't, then they're just going to continue operation there. Is that what I got from the letter?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and the letter states that they don't have a need for the facility. There's
Right.
a few of them because the mail service has less people utilizing it because of internet.
Right. So why are they keeping it open if they don't need it?
What they really need is 6,500 square feet of retail counter space in or near the facility. So they will be looking, if they sell it, they will be looking for another location. They don't need all the space and all the activities that they do there.
Maybe they'd like to come here and lease space here in this building.
We
I
thought-
think we have some empty spots. In fact, I know we do.
We thought about that. There may be a parking issue.
Oh, okay. Yes, probably. You're right. Right. Okay. Anyway, anybody else have council comments? Councilwoman Kerwin?
Today was the start. At a previous meeting, I mentioned that the Michigan State University Extension is one of the partners offering 100 free training opportunities in 30 days. And today was the first one, which was held in Pontiac at the County Executive Building. This is open to everyone, not only elected and appointed officials, but anyone. And I would encourage our viewers to go ahead and log on to www.landpolicy.msu.edu, and you can find out where those trainings are. There's one upcoming at the Royal Oak Library. Nice chance to see a different library. And that, I believe, is May 2nd. But that's for what we call Economy 101, and then there's Economy 201, and then Economy 301. Today's Economy 101 put the economy not only in terms of where Michigan State is, but also globally. And please bear in mind that when we look at the state's economy, we've just gone through 9 straight years of budget cutting in the state of Michigan for the state budget, and yet we continue to have a structural deficit. And that is truly the concern, is how can we continue to operate as a state? And how does that affect us locally? It has to do with why we were in Lansing this week, and that was to talk about revenue sharing. For the past, we have not been fully funded from revenue sharing as a city for 10 years. Now, on a 10-year cycle, if you look at the state of Michigan in terms of the municipalities and put the chart of 10 years of being underfunded in revenue sharing and the 10 years in cuts in police and fire, you will find that the charts are identical. And so this is a basic safety issue. I think for people who don't understand what are they talking about revenue sharing, I would like to just point out that in the state constitution, there's a guarantee of revenue sharing, which was honored until about 10 years ago, at which point then a formula was developed. And we have been underfunded from that point on, from 2000, and we have experienced then our multi-million-dollar problems as a result of that 2000. So I know that tomorrow we will be talking as a council about budget implications, but this needs to be nested in terms of not just Troy, where people say, gee, it is not a Troy issue. It's a state government issue. And again, if we were provided even this year with our proper revenue sharing, we would be in a different game altogether. But we're not. And we as elected leaders have to not only advocate our state elected officials to honor what it says in the state constitution to return our revenue sharing as is promised, and to work within our means, which is what our citizens just told us. They said, you have your budget, work within our means. It's our obligation under the law to balance this budget, and we will have to do what we can in order to balance it. So I encourage everyone to come to the learning about economy at every level. These are many-hour classes, but they are offered free so that we can have everybody having the same conversation about the same economy. The notes for 101 Fundamentals of the Global New Economy will be found on the website, which is www.landpolicy.msu.edu.
I want to just key off for just a minute on something that Councilman Curran just said, because in talking to various people in the community, and since the defeat of the village election, many people who voted no said they voted no because of what's happening not only at the local level, but at the state and the federal level with taxes that they are paying. And that was their chance to kind of protest about taxes, and you see that in the different groups that are meeting and picketing and stuff like that. Okay. They are saying they pay out money to these various entities, but they don't receive the services back that they feel that they should be getting. However, that was penny wise and pound foolish, because they get the services from the local government here at their local level, and that they didn't have an opportunity to express that to the state and the federal government by saying no to something that they were asking for. So I keep trying to explain to people about the situation and why we have to do the things we do. And for example, tonight, the people were here to say, save the library. But we explained before the vote about what option one was and why those items were chosen, and what would happen. And then the people are saying, you really are going to do that? And we said, yes, that's what we said. That's what it meant, because we had all the numbers there. So there's a miscommunication that people don't want to hear the truth. And when they hear that about the monies, they're in disbelief, because for so long we've done so well here. So I think we have to continually explain to people about why we're in the situation that we are in. And when they see that's happening with other cities, there was an article about what's happening with the library in Birmingham, what's happening, West Bloomfield's been without a library, and other communities of what they're doing in various departments. It's happening all around because of those monies. But it's interesting as you talk to people, because they're still talking about this, and of course we're right in the throes of it because we have to make the tough decisions. And tomorrow night meeting again, making more tough decisions, but we're required to do that. Any other council comments here? Okay, did I see you signaling, Councilman Slater?
Mayor?
Yes.
Initially, I was going to propose postponing this study session tomorrow because I thought it was important to have Councilwoman Beltramini present. I had forgotten that next Monday we also have a budget meeting. So I think it is important that we have the meeting before next Monday. And talking amongst other members, there doesn't seem to be a way of postponing it further. So although I want to postpone it to have her present, I really don't see a way of doing that. So I'm going to try and encourage tomorrow to possibly postpone her agenda item till the following Monday during our budget session, so that hopefully she can be back Monday to speak on behalf of that. So,
well, there's some items that we're going to discuss in the memos from John and the staff that may impact that, because we had, if we've read all that information for Tuesday, there's some serious implications there about
right. I think they go hand in hand.
Yeah, I do too.
I was trying to figure a way to get so we can involve her, but unfortunately, I don't think we have time, because I think we need the presentation before next Monday. So it was suggested to me that it will be taped, and opportunities to view it will be there. So I guess I'll just see you tomorrow.
Okay. Is it my understanding that we do not need a closed session? Did we determine that?
You do?
I would.
Oh,
Okay.
Councilwoman Kerwin would like it, so would you like to move that?
I will. Be it resolved that Troy City Council shall meet in closed session as permitted by MCL 15.268E, pending litigation, Troy versus Lukic Realty, LLC, and Troy versus Firas. Is it an L or an I?
Ibrahim.
I. Ibrahim and Rita Ibrahim.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Kerwin, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Fleming, that we meet in closed session as indicated. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember McGinnis?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Motion passes. So we're in recess. Well, now we'll have the closed session.